Got it. Literally. Okay. Thank you.
Mhm.
All right. We're just going to give people a minute or two to get settled.
Yeah.
Looking around, I'm going to borrow one of my IIBA colleague things of where are people from? Because it's nice that I start to get to see folks I get to see repeat faces here, or at least names, not always, but I get to see some. If anybody wants to throw in there, if you are, it's always good to see where people are dialing in from if you have a second.
Ooh,
Awesome.
all sorts of places.
Great. Okay. Okay. Awesome. That's nice. New York City. All right. Australia. It's always nice to see the folks from Australia. It's like I love how this time slot dovetails with your day in not a horrible way.
Australia, we have London, Canada.
Awesome. London. It is late for you in London.
Mm-hmm.
It is so nice you're here, but oh my God, it's
Bed.
midnight plus. All right. Well, it is when it says when it ticks to 5 minutes after the hour, I'm going to just get started, which is just in a moment or two. Great. Okay, we got 26 people. That's always nice. Okay. Share button. All right. Oh, let's see. And the oops. Done. Good. You see my screen advance here, right?
Yep. We're good.
All right. Welcome, folks. I know we're still having a few people filtering in. We have a few documents and links to share with everybody. We're going to do that after I've gotten through some of the introductions and things, because I would love to save Liz the trouble of sharing them out a couple of times. So as always, my appreciation to Liz for helping MC this. It lets me focus on talking to all of you about our topic tonight, which is I've done my context diagram. What's next? I hope people got to see the context diagram recording or were here for it. If you do a show of hands or just a thumbs up, it'd be great. Just lets me have an idea that people have seen it. How many of you, just a quick show of hands, have seen or know what a context diagram is? Just use the thumbs up icon. It gives me like a total of those over here. So that's kind of cool. Okay, great. All right, good. This is helpful. Okay. All right, a lot of people have. We are going to review it briefly, and one of the links we're going to share, if you didn't know what it is or you haven't seen it, is we are going to have that, that video is out on YouTube as a private video. I will probably set it to public at some point because that actually looked like a decent one when I got to look through it. So I want to just make sure you can look at that. So if you feel like you might not fully get the context diagram thing tonight, I totally understand that. That video is there, and it's 90 more minutes of goodness if you haven't had a chance to see it. Or if you just can't, you just can't get enough of listening to my voice tonight, there's 90 more minutes on a recording somewhere for you. God help you. If that's your life, seek help. I highly encourage you to do that. All right. So about me, in case you don't know, in case this is your first time here, I'm Ryland Layton. I do a lot with the IIBA. I am a BA in life in my day job. I happen to work at Cognizant's Microsoft Business Group, where I'm a senior business analyst and agile coach. I am not speaking on behalf of the IIBA tonight, or can't use that hand that much. Liz knows why. Story about my shoulder again in a little while, I'm sure, but I got to watch my right hand. I'm out of a sling, but I can't use it this much. So I'm not speaking on behalf of an employer or any organization tonight. Opinions are mine. Don't get all upset if I say something and somebody and you feel like that's a position from another group. It's not. It's just my view on things. And I like to talk as I like to see things. It's one privilege I get of hosting this stuff here. So I've written a couple of books. The Agile Business Analyst is kind of where I started, because I started helping people do agility better from an agile point of view for the BA space. The career book was because it came along with that in a way. People kept saying, do I need to do this? I'm thinking about my career. How does that go? So it kind of was a passion project along the way as well. And lately, I have a few copies around. The Rock Crusher, a model for flow-based backlog management, which there is an IIBA webinar next week. If you have not signed up or heard about that already, I would love to have gotten that link. I think it's a members only event. So check your your calendar with the IIBA and see about it. It's Wednesday next week, and all three of us authors of that book will be there. And I can tell you it should be a lot of fun, and it seems to be real interesting. There are like 900 people registered for that event already. Stephanie is letting me know it is a public event. Stephanie, if you happen to have a link to that and could share it in the chat, and maybe Liz share it again at the end, that would be great. I totally forgot to think about that for next week. So that way people can join in on that. It'll be a lot of fun, and you'll get to meet a few other people than me. Always a nice thing to do. So again, I do this stuff and I go and I do it at work, which is to say tomorrow I go back to stakeholders and I will be figuring out all the things that we talk about here. I will be doing modeling. I've got a fun entity relationship diagram coming up with my current client. I'm actually excited about it, believe it or not. I do context diagrams with them all the time, data work, and all the BA stuff that I teach, I use every day. So that's kind of where I work and live in the space. So if you didn't know about it already, if a friend referred you here and you didn't know, that's me on LinkedIn over there on the right. That's the link to follow on Eventbrite. And for now, at least, I am sticking with them. That's me editorializing the fact that they've changed their terms a lot. I may be switching platforms next year, but everyone will know about it well ahead if I do. So take a look at that. If you aren't already following me through Eventbrite, please do. It lets me send out emails and people can tell you I send them out. I try not to send out like 20 a month. I think I've sent out as much as 4 a month, including like updates and edits, and that's at the most. So please do that. And after that, to make sure you know, I think we're into our partner groups. So I usually get a chance to look. I don't know if we have anybody from Birmingham here tonight. Is anybody? I'm going to talk about the chapters we work with, that I partner with to do these things. I want to see, is anybody from Birmingham here to talk about what's coming up with Birmingham? No. Okay, no worries there. Take a look at the website. Again, the nice thing about how we've done things now that we're all virtual, right, is you can participate in events from almost any chapter, almost any time. Next, we have St. Louis, which is Liz and others. Liz, I don't know if you want to talk for a moment about the chapter, if anything coming up you want to mention.
Just getting work on our programming for next year. Nothing else happening right now.
Okay, great. Click. Right, I clicked on the wrong place. Click. All right. And Bluegrass, I think, Aaron, did you want to chime in for a minute?
I am here, and we always have things going on, although it sounds like Liz is ahead of us that we haven't started scheduling for next year or anything.
Aaron, you want to come a little closer to the mic? It's hard to hear you, I think.
It's hard to hear me?
Now I can hear you. Now I can hear. Yeah, sorry, it disappeared for a minute there.
We always have something going on at Bluegrass, although Liz seems to be ahead of us. We haven't really started scheduling for next year yet. But next week on Thursday evening, Thursday all day, we have a conference, and it's artificial intelligence. So we'll talk a lot about chat GPT and generative AI for all SDLC professionals. So we'll be very good. 8 sessions, 8 PDUs, really good at everything. And then in October, we have a business data analytics class that is starting October 9th, October 11th. The early bird special ends tomorrow. So if you're interested in business data analytics, you want to get registered for that class as soon as possible.
Okay. Thanks, Aaron. And I don't know if folks are here from Palmetto. I wanted to check. Did anybody here make it from that chapter tonight? Okay. One of the nice things, folks, is I work with the chapters to do this, but the nice part is they get to host an event for chapter members that is relatively low work for them and low stress. And personally, I find that a nice service to the community. So I think it's great. Take a look at Palmetto's schedule as well. They're also having study groups and other speakers other than myself. So please take a look. All right, and again, back up to me. So we've got me covered. I think I'm in there twice. Need to get rid of one of those slides. Okay, let's talk about a couple of things going on. I said I was going to share a couple of links real quick. I'm going to show this on the screen, what I'm talking about. Liz is going to drop these into the chat window so you all can have those, as well as a diagram that we're going to have for later. Let me just get the right window up here. So I am embarking on a little project, which is a survey about agile career beliefs, perceptions, and so forth. That link is in here. This is not going to be what the link is there is for comment. I would love it if, especially with I think we're up to 30 people who are in the room, 31 at the moment. It would be great if everybody could take a minute on that later on. I'm sure you're a spectrum of folks from both backgrounds and what kind of work you're doing, and hopefully your level in your organization. If it's at all possible, please take a look at this later. I just want to go ahead and get some sample data and your feedback about it. Anything you put in here isn't the live thing, but please reflect the answers honestly for you, because that'll give you the experience to give me the feedback. I want to kind of see what people believe, whether you're the person looking for a job, whether you're a manager, a recruiter, or in leadership. I have done a survey like this before about 6 years ago, well before COVID. And the answers were very interesting as to who thought what was important. There were things that job seekers thought the hiring professionals thought would be really important, and it wasn't. And there were things that the reverse of that. The people who were making the hiring decisions felt certain things were absolutely critical for job seekers, and they didn't know that. The job seekers didn't know to surface those things. So I am doing a little more survey about that. And I would absolutely love to have, a good spectrum of feedback before I launch it live. I want to get this out during the last couple of months of the year and, continue to get data for a few months into next year. It is a slow soak kind of thing. And I also want to get a broad spectrum of recruiters and leaders. It takes a little while to hunt a few down who will give me answers. Please do this if you can. You're also going to have two links to YouTube. One is the context diagram thing I did back in, I think it was January. That's on here. Now you'll have the link. It's unlisted. I can't believe I remember saying these words, but if you like it, it helps, and it'll let me know also that this is a thing I should keep doing. So that's helpful. I may put this session up at another point. And then I realized tonight I am going to vent my spleen just a little touch on minimum viable product, and it may surprise you in the sense of, oh my goodness, I'd never thought of minimum viable product that way. It is a debatable thing. We may do things in Q&A on it. I don't know that I'll do a lot of talking about it at the time tonight when I hit it in the presentation. This session with Fabrizio, who has a ton of interesting content out there, I was so happy to get to talk with him. We spent a good 20 minutes talking about MVP and related topics. So I strongly suggest if you want more about that and we didn't have a chance to hit it tonight on your questions or otherwise, please go there. Liz, I think, is going to drop the context diagram we're going to use for our examples tonight in the chat. There's an image file. Just go ahead and use that if you want to refer to it. Again, I'll send that out with the presentation again when I send out links and stuff. However, some people found it helpful when I do this session to have one to look at on the fly, or to print out and mark up, or mark it on your screen, whatever works for you. That's what those are. Last housekeeping thing. Well, I'm going to minimize this. Last housekeeping thing, while I minimize that, is that I can only see so many things at one time on the screen. So if you have a burning question and I've completely lost you, feel free to raise your hand or put the question in the chat window. Liz is going to monitor that. I can't always keep an eye on chat during these. So if I lose you, first thing, start there. Liz will keep an eye if other people are also confused, and she'll interrupt me. So please do that. When we get to Q&A, feel free to just raise your hand directly or put a question in if you prefer, okay? I do like to leave a lot of time for Q&A, and this presentation should allow that. All right, with that, let's jump in. I want to give you guys context for things on this, and I want to make it personal. So I'm going to tell you about how this matters to me and why it does. And I might ask you to give me a reaction of thumbs up if you feel me, do that for me. Okay, if you feel where I'm saying, if you've had this experience, do that for me. Okay, so has this ever been you? You are on a new project of some kind. It could be an enhancement, could be greenfield, whatever it is, it's appropriate to your space. And you are looking at the project because of its complexity. It's the beginning. You haven't started your analysis work yet. You're figuring out what you need to do to be successful to support and enable developers, product owners, product managers. Doesn't matter if it's waterfall or agile. That's absolutely completely unimportant at this stage. So you're looking at it and you're saying, I think this is the way through the maze. If I do these things, I can get the team over to there and we can build this successfully. Okay, that's how I see this. So far, am I making sense for folks? I'm gonna see if I can find that window where I can tell if people are reacting or not. But let me know if a thumbs up is there. That always helps. Okay, I can see a few of those. Yes, the window reacts for me. Okay, so a couple of people. Beyond that, does this happen to you next? You're looking at that big picture thinking, all right, these are the key questions. Here's how I get scope. Here's what I have to talk to these people. There feels like there's some really unresolved questions. Meanwhile, everyone else in that room is saying things like, oh, I can start on this tomorrow, or, oh, well, we need this. We couldn't possibly get there without that. They're just all leaping into action immediately. And some of it is well ahead of when they should. For me, that happens every now and then. It depends on the team and how, because I'm in a consulting space, how much we're trying to rush in reaction to stuff the client is doing. Oh, wow, 100 icon, that's kind of neat. I realize for recording, no one will know what I'm looking at, but there's a whole bunch of people who just gave thumbs up and a 100% kind of thing. That was cool. I didn't know that could happen. So yeah, so people are trying to leap ahead of you. And then, and I want you to know, I love this next picture because honestly, it was me. You may have heard me say that as a consultant, as a senior professional, as a consultant, you need to be able to control your own behavior, because the only thing you control in any room is your own behavior. So I found this picture and it expressed really how I felt next. I am trying to decide, how do I influence the people in the room? Which of these expressions could I use to communicate how I am feeling and why I need them to behave differently? And what we need to do. Am I going to lose it? Am I going to ponder with them? How do I get their attention in a constructive way without looking like I've just lost my whatever I needed to have lost in my body? And I honestly feel that way sometimes. Like, what am I going to do? How do I, or what somebody might say, we've all been there, right? Somebody might say, well, I don't see why we couldn't just get started on it immediately. I'm like, and that's because you aren't looking at the problem. And you haven't even thought about the stakeholders, and you haven't seen any of this. And I've been there a lot. So what if instead of narrowing it down to 5 friendly pictures that I might be able to think about out of these 20 I had, 25 I had, what instead of narrowing it down and saying, am I going to say, huh, that's really interesting? Or wait. Instead of narrowing it that far, I were to instead have the opportunity to say something like this. So I want to get a little thinking done with everybody. Or in my head, if all of you just listen for a minute, right? That's what's in my head. But what I instead do is unwind that. And I say instead this. I'm going to show you a plan. And here is the plan. Here is a list of things. Here's what we need to do. Here's what of those things we need to do first. Here's what we get for doing every one of those things. Here's what happens if we leave one out. Risk. I'll come back to that later. That's risk. Here's how much effort I think it will take to get through the things I've shown you. And here's how fast I could burn that effort. Okay? Because how long a thing takes and how quickly I can spend that effort could depend on the stakeholders' availability. It could depend on my availability. It could depend on if everything's ready yet. Like, is it soon enough to know the answers? Here's how long I think it could take to do that. And the thing I left off of this, although it's not, it's kind of implied, is, and here's who else I will need, okay? So those are the things I want to do. And I want to lay that out easily versus fighting and finding the right expression. So I could just say, read my face. Read my face. Do you see just how much? No, you can't all just start, okay? We'd like a little time to do analysis. I realize that's my job title, but it's not just that. There's a reason I'm here. I'd rather be able to do the thing I just showed on the screen, on the chalkboard idea. Now, this is how this works. I've got the vision. I've got a context diagram. Or if I don't, I explain why it's important to do it first. And I'm going to tell you, if you don't have one already done and you just landed on the project, you can stop the room, probably with support of your project manager and everybody else, by constructively saying, I would love to start. Let me just ask, do we have a good statement about the scope yet and what problem we're solving? I'd just like to know that we've got that before we launch into any depth work. Does anyone have that? No. Okay, how soon could we maybe do that work? Because that'll tell us what else we got to do, right? Because if you actually don't have scope, but everybody's starting to run as fast as they can, you might be in an organization that runs by crisis, that operates on a crisis basis and nothing else. That's a different conversation, but I thought it's important to note that. I typically don't run into that, especially in consulting. People have a defined scope, typically before they sign an engagement, unless we're doing a capacity-based thing, in which case we already know how we're collaborating. So there's that. Now, if I can get my context diagram, I can make the things that will let me do that chalkboard thing I was describing, okay? I will be able to make an approach. I'll be able to list the stakeholders I need, the artifacts I'm going to create, and my analysis plan to get all of that work done. And I'll be able to make it visible, accountable. I'll show who else is involved, and I can show progress on it to a project manager or my team members or whatever. And in a waterfall world, I can use it to hold everything accountable and transparent, and to get collaboration from team members who might be saying, well, aren't you just going to get everything done for me ahead of my development? I am going to write it all. More to the point, we will come up with as a team the requirements before you do development. However, I'm not the only person involved in that work, am I? And here's why I need you, or other things, okay? So you can show all of those things. And in an agile context, again, I may be borrowing ahead from this deck a little. In an agile context, I'll be able to show, here's what I could talk about enough that we could start on it quickly. Here's everything else, and why I need to get that into the backlog, because it's ready to go. It's knowable, it's valuable. And while we do that, I can buy a couple of weeks to go do more analysis work. That's the way I would approach it in an agile context. So we are going to make the assumption at this point. You have your context diagram, you have a framework for doing your work. That is to say, you have an existing waterfall world you're working in and you know it, or a style or framework of agility, whether it's disciplined agile or Scrum or SAFe or whatever you're using, or your hybrid approach at your company. Many people have hybrid approaches. So if you, I'm going to assume you have one. If not, as happens to many BAs, you are prepared to recommend one. You can say from your context diagram, given what we want to achieve and the constraints we're in, I would suggest we do the work the following way. Okay. And you're ready to move on and start shaping your analysis approach and your plan. Okay. So again, no matter, you look at that slide on the right, at the bottom of the right, waterfall or agile, you need an approach. I'm not going to read that to you, but the point is you still got to have an approach no matter how you work. Now let's put a little more context here, and then we're going to dive into how you do what you do. All right, remember, you're an expert. You're bringing skills and knowledge to the table. Remember I said that you can only control your own behavior? That's going to matter. So when I talk about expert BA stuff, it's those two highlighted yellow bullet points there. You got to be able to explain and execute your process, and you got to have a deep and broad set of tools. Your context diagram is one of them. Doesn't matter if you're doing waterfall or agile work. It's a good tool, okay? We're going to talk about more. I will give you a list and a way to look at other tools a little further in. Have an approach. Top question I ask people when I'm interviewing for a BA position, when I'm hiring for a BA, and I expect different answers based on seniority of what I'm looking for there. You know, of how much guidance I expect a BA that I'm seeking, for a position I'm filling, how much guidance I expect them to have, or to need rather. I expect them to self-guide the more senior they are. But I will tell you that in almost every position, for anything under a senior practitioner, BAs often don't have an approach. Have one. It will set you apart, be able to make a plan. Your certifications will matter. Showing what you do with your certification will matter more. Okay, why does this work? It works because given that you do the artifacts on the left, you get all the stuff together on the left I'm describing. Picture if you walk in and you have those things together. Your project manager or Scrum Master, or if you're accountable to somebody in an agile context, your PO who wants everything now and can't understand why they can't have it. It still happens, okay? They can see what you need to do and why, okay? They can see the risks they take on if they don't do it. They can see the value, and they can make a decision about it. And I hate the term percent complete. I'm not going to dive into why as much, because I think every BA here, if somebody asks you what percent completes are your requirements, it's just not a really good question. It doesn't have a lot of meaning sometimes. But I can be accountable to things like how many I have 10 stakeholders to interview and I've gotten 8 of them done. That's 80% complete. And I can't complete the next thing without getting all of them done, though I can start it. I can start a task, but not finish it, given a predecessor activity. Sometimes that works, right? Project managers understand that a lot. Your own manager, because we all have one, whether they're a BA manager or someone in another discipline and you like a dev manager and report to them. If you can show the things I declared on the left, they have a sense of confidence, okay? And for me, the biggest deal is the last bullet on that little block. I do not micromanage well. That is to say, I don't receive micromanagement well. I'm also not going to micromanage anybody. Helping coach and develop is a different topic, but I don't want to have to micromanage. So for me, I don't like being micromanaged. I want to give them the reasonable confidence that I know what I'm doing so they can rely on me and that I know that they're there when I need them and vice versa. And your stakeholders, waterfall, agile, either way, whether it's your PO or PM or however, they can see that you understand what they are about because they can see it reflected in the document, in the artifacts, all of those things being artifacts, let's just say, that you create. We're going to go into some of that. So again, remember, transparency, stakeholder analysis, you're going to get all of this out of your context diagram, okay? Let's talk about the analysis approach statement first. This is an example one. It doesn't apply to the document we have, but I'm going to show you that in a little bit. It's very simple, short email, in my world anyway. I like to do email, so let's just say. It's a short document. It's got these key parts to it. Just because it's short doesn't mean you don't spend time writing it. You could easily take, once you've thought through it and made out your plan of what you think you should do, you could easily spend an hour writing and revising this so it's really consumable and doesn't go over anybody's head. You want it to be the beginning. This is where you begin your transparency and accountability. Okay, so this email does that. And remember, depending on whether you're in a waterfall or agile, you're going to see all the people involved here soon. So I am going to read this through with you for a minute because I want to show you these because people, so many people skip this. They really do. And I really want you to not do that. This is so critical in BA work to get, this is your approach statement where you are going to outline these things. My mouse. You are writing this statement that I'm about to show you. So you're showing stakeholders, artifacts, and analysis plan. It's how you get the credibility. All right. So just bear with me. So team, hey, this is the people. You notice I got them lined up. I told you their title, their roles. Obviously, that doesn't need to be done in an email. As we talked about Thursday, this is the first epic we're going to do. Yes, I'm talking about it in an agile context, but I'm going to cover this exact thing in a waterfall for you today. Given we want to start development in sprint 17, 4 work days from now, right? Important context piece. Here's how I plan to tackle things. Basic forms for steps 1, 2, and 3 of create the account are laid out by Dave, the designer. I can immediately write the stories for these basic forms, what attributes need to be available and saved. That should get us to start 17 and get us through the end of 18. In other words, I expect those basic things to take 4 weeks to deliver. As long as I get enough done for 17, I can write the rest afterwards, since I've only got 4 days. In other words, I had to write a handful of stories. While that's going on, while I get those 4 weeks, how will I use those 4 weeks? I'm going to tackle 2 more things. Identify the business process rules that apply for these steps. Can you create an account if we don't know your company? Are we only allowing people from certain companies to create accounts? Do we require someone else to create the account for you? What are the business rules if there are? Okay. If you have an outstanding account debt with us, how do we handle that? And there might be things. I have a few people to talk about. I'll want to check with Bill about which are really needed for the MVP and which are below the line, not as important enough and can be deferred. I'll get those stories written for the MVP ones. Basic stories written for steps 4 to 7, coordinate with Dave for the wireframes because Dave, our designer, doesn't have those yet because we haven't figured them out. And I'll double check with all of you tomorrow that this aligns with your expectations. I sent an email telling them what I told them, and tomorrow I'm going to check if they read it and if they're okay with it. Because this is how I'm going to act. And I've only got 4 days to fix it if they don't like it. If I've missed something, if this isn't how the product owner sees the world also, like, oh no, I don't want this next. Or, oh no, I don't want this. Yes, this is important, but I don't want you to start till sprint 18. 17, I want something else. Great. I need to know tomorrow morning, right? So we're all aligned and it's transparent. All right, approach, again, short and to the point. Your business analysis plan, you will identify your stakeholders, talk about your techniques, figure out what you're going to build, all that stuff. You don't need to have everything figured out this minute, but you need to show them where you're going. If you're doing waterfall, you probably have to have more of it figured out up front. In agility, people will expect you to iterate. All right. Remember I said about being professionals. Let's just briefly show this. I'm not going to spend nearly as much time on these slides. You know about the IIBA knowledge areas. If you don't, check on them. Okay. These are good ways to look at things. This is how things interact. Okay. I am a fan of this. Actually, I helped write some of the IIBA content on the website about analysis planning. The BACCM, if you don't know the core concept model, because maybe you're part of the IIBA space, maybe you're not, pick this up. You can Google this. There are a lot of articles out there. This is a really valuable concept. I keep this sometimes in the corner of a window, or back when I was at an office, I would a small printout of it, I would put somewhere, because I wanted to think, have I considered these things? All of these aspects that interconnect of a project. Real important to do during your planning. Do I know what changes are needed? Who will be affected by them? What the solution is that will cause that change? Who will get value from the solution? In what context do they get that benefit? All that stuff. Inside business analysis, planning, and monitoring, you have a whole bunch of tasks, inputs, outputs. It's good to think through. Okay, I really do recommend you give that a little thought if this is a new space to you, because it'll help you think, do I know these things? Even if I'm not like sitting there trying to be a zealot about my practice, do I know what we're needing to accomplish? Do I know the objectives? And do I know who's involved? Have I thought that through? Do I know what processes are affected? It's just good to think through, okay? And again, more on the inside of that. Let's not spend our time there right now, but take a look at it in the box. It's useful. Let's get into today's scenario. You have this diagram, all right? Let's set a little context, because maybe people don't know. The center is the solution, and that is where we have control. Okay, I'm reviewing the context diagram concepts for you for a minute right now. In the center, in the circle, this means I have control over this solution. I can write a requirement and the team can execute against that. I have power to act here. If you look at the actors, because these are actors, right? These are human actors, these are system actors. I don't have any power over them. They will or won't do what they will or won't do. I can't control any more here than I can, as I like to say, in a room, right? So a homeowner, remember, this is a garden design application. A homeowner is going to want to be able to do these things. Each of these is a rough capability, is how this works out. Again, more on this in another video. They want to be able to define the yard shape, automatically detect a shape from a photo. Those are different things. They might come in at different times in the work. We're just trying to see the overall picture. This is a see the whole kind of activity. So these are the actions a homeowner might request of the solution. And here are things the solution in response to their actions or other people's actions will provide or interact with or emit towards as a behavior the homeowner. The solution can present the homeowner with a list of yard projects. They can display the details of one yard project. They can, if a designer has submitted a proposal about that project, they could display it to them. They could display a list of plant materials that are appropriate for the zone or soil or whatever in here. They could display inventory availability if we're up to that phase of things, okay? And I will interact with these other systems to do it. So you kind of see connections here. If I'm dealing with external systems, I'm probably interacting through APIs or replicated data or something. I don't need to deal with that yet. This is a why and a what diagram. There is zero to little how in this diagram. I don't want to talk about how these things will be instantiated, other than maybe, is this a mobile application? Like, are we intending to design something that sits on a phone? Or is this a desktop app? Or is it something else? Okay. Those might be useful overall context questions. And if you are with my other, when you look at the other one, I'll show you how I handled that. But for right now, just understand we're dealing with a phone or a tablet application, okay? If we do anything else, we're going to present it in a window on a computer browser that is emulating a laptop, a tablet device of some kind. So I'm getting those things together and I can see who my actors are, okay? That's the whole thing here. It's a breadth before depth technique, and it elicits a lot of the details and shows me what I'm expecting each actor in the system to do or benefit from or contribute or be able to do at the end, right? As an example, if the inventory system, and this is all depending on, All of this depending on context that you will be aware of because you're the person on the spot. If you're using a third-party inventory system, you know it. If you're going to build one, or somebody across the room from you has built one because they are in your company, but you don't control that team, you know that. So you have context, okay? You have more information than you're seeing here because it's not something we need to document. When you're on the team, you know this stuff. That's normal. You can always write it down in addition. You know, or like a relevant thing here might have been if it's another team in your company that has the inventory system, you could say, I got to validate that their APIs are ready for us. I know they were building some of these things. I don't know if they're done. That would be a valid note to take on. You're revealing a dependency. Okay. All right. For our scenario, as I talk about it in general, as I walk you through how I would see these things and how you would do it with the context diagram, here is what you should assume that you didn't know so far, because it's context. All right. We're going to do an agile work style. We're going to do Scrum. We're doing 2-week sprints. And in 3 weeks, we're starting. If I look back here, the product owner wants the homeowner to be the focus of the first release. We're thinking about release 1 because we don't have anything. So we want to get release 1 finished. We're thinking about homeowner needs for the first MVP. By the way, there aren't like multiple MVPs. I found out somebody thinks that way, and it's not what I describe. Typically, you talk about MVP and everything after. MVP is you do it once. You don't do multiple MVPs. It's not a thing. Not to me anyway. Okay, and our goal from the product owner is to do an MVP to friendly and prepared customers in 3 to 4 sprints because I've got nothing. And my product owner is there with me and says, yeah, I want to get feedback. I know that it is not going to be everything I want. And I want to show, I'm going to prepare the people we show it to know they're looking at work in progress. And I want their opinion about key things. They're going to help me shape what we're going to do. Okay, that's so far, this is good to me. Very rough product roadmap afterwards. We're not really sure. We're going to work on homeowners doing maybe the basic stuff and maybe a little more depth given feedback. After that, we're going to start working onto our other actors in the system, designers and depth. So like the skinniest set of designer stuff we can think of, and then add some depth. Okay. On our diagram, we're over here. Homeowner, we're going to add the basics first because we're not sure how much we can get done in a few weeks. The team hasn't estimated that. And then after we get through that, which is MVP, which is where somebody could lay out a garden of some kind, we're going to start looking at stuff we might do for the designer. Like maybe, I'm making things up, the basics are the homeowner can lay out a project and send it to a designer who will give some text comments. Maybe that's the cheap thing. But we still have to set these people up with accounts. We have to give them an interface to get those things. You know, there's things to do to get the basics there. All right. After that, we're not sure what we're going to do, and it might be a year away. All right. All right. If we could do that, we have at least a product that we could sell. Somebody could start laying out a garden, and in theory, I've got a revenue stream that I could say, maybe I could do a couple of things. If a large retailer or garden store likes the idea, wants to take a journey with me, maybe they'll start paying us for the privilege to use it with their customers. Maybe it's good enough that we think we can market it out there in the world. Don't know. We don't have it yet. But our goal is to get to something that we could at least think about a revenue stream with, even if it's a primitive one. That is better than not having it. So what do you do now? Some people ask me, hey, what's the recipe for this? And the answer, the next recipe is you think. You have to think. You know what you want to get to. But remember that maze thing I was showing you? This is where you're starting to figure that out. Maybe you've already figured it out. That was kind of my point. You probably already have the context diagram. So you have a vision given the diagram and this view from the stakeholders, the key stakeholders. How are you going to help them get there? Okay. All right. I got prioritization. I have thoughts about what I do and don't know. I have 3 weeks to get stories that are ready for the team to use, which means I really have about 2 weeks because I need to show it to my product owner possibly, or my technical partner probably in 2 weeks, right? So that if they give me feedback and I've made any kind of errors, I have a chance to correct those things before it goes to the team for estimation and then into development. So I'm thinking I got 2 solid weeks I can make use of. And if I go farther than that, I'm stretching my time a little bit. Okay, you're planning backwards a little, right? I call it American movie planning. Movie starts at 4:30. We want to arrive by 4. Takes us a half hour to get there. Might be a line. I need to leave the house, 3:30-ish to be there for a 4:30 movie. Oh, I forgot the trailers. We want to see the trailers. We want to show up another 30 minutes earlier than that, right? If you are going to go through a line and get concessions and stuff, you need another half hour. This is why for a 4:30 movie, you show up at the theater at 3:30 or earlier, right? Because those things are going to happen. So you're working backwards in your own world on that. All right. Who are my stakeholders? What does my analysis look like? Technical constraints, right? Maybe the databases are not available yet, but you're going to fake them. All right. What did I say? Oh, so much of what you need is there. I got actors. I know my homeowner is one. I need someone who can represent them. They're a stakeholder, right? The system actor being the solution. Granted, I don't love I don't love system actors. Okay. It's not my favorite thing. However, I can talk about it. I'm like, okay, what behaviors will the solution provide? What will it do? Right. And then I've got the National Plant Database. That's like, for those of you that aren't familiar with this idea, I don't know in detail, but it's a service I've made up. It is a service, it's a third-party service I've bought the right to use, and it has a way for me to query. Here's a zone, here's the kind of plant I want. Gardening is done by zones, for those of you that don't happen to know. And I get back lists of plants that might be tall plants, short plants, plants that start young, that are perennials, that grow to a certain height. I can give it parameters, and it'll give me those things back about what plants meet my parameters. Okay, that already exists. However, if it didn't, either way, I have a stakeholder here. Someone owns that relationship, or I may need access to that database if I don't have it already. Okay, all kinds of things could happen with this. So, and then I've got my list of capabilities, right? So every one of those things here is at least the start of a thing I need to be able to deliver. If you're interested in business requirements, let's just take this one, define yard shape. The solution shall enable, if you want to write BRs, which I still do, even in agility, I write BRs, it happens. Solution shall enable a actor, homeowner, to define a yard shape, including dimensions and 90-degree angle turns only initially, for up to X square feet within the solution. The solution shall enable a customer to save a defined yard shape project with a name. Solution shall enable a homeowner to retrieve a named yard shape for further actions, right? Changing plants, etc. I can write BRs from here. I've got some good information. Maybe not everything, but it'll lead me to other thoughts, right? What UIs do I need? Okay. But all that turns into capabilities. Every line turns into at least one, maybe more capability. What are the artifacts I'm likely to create? Now, we could disagree on these. Everybody might have a different approach. Okay, that is totally fine. You are the BA in your spot. And like I said, you're a professional. You know what you're doing. You have an approach that you're using, and you know what's needed in your environment and with the team you work with, and the specific details you're at. Remember all those one-off items. I might do a use case diagram like this, or I might catalog them. I might just make a list. Depends on what I need to show, right? Whether the visual is better or a list is better. You've probably heard me say a picture is worth 1,000 words, and a good picture can be worth 10,000. I'd rather show a picture. They're going to read them. Okay. I might need an entity relationship diagram. I probably will. I want to start to be able to talk about things in a way that shows cardinality and lets me think about the objects in the universe that I want to deal with, right? A homeowner will have many yard projects. A yard project will have a number of yard project attributes about it. Materials will be located in places, right? I might have a master list. I might have a list that are available in general for this particular project. And then I'm showing where they show up in the world. You can do that in simple notation or crow's foot, the way I have it here. I have a database background. I tend to do my cardinality a little stronger like this. Okay, you could also do it with tables, but the whole point is you can at least have a language to start talking about what's in the world. That's going to be useful for your user interface designer. This is going to be both of the diagrams here. I think those will be useful to help surface to the technical team, design professionals, QA team members who are often forgotten, and we should do our best to try to help keep them at the table. What do they need to start thinking about? What questions do they have for you that you need to create the answers to in your work, right? You also start on your stakeholder list, right? Your backlog, and depending on where you're working, user stories. I said I'm working agile. This is how I see the first several stories laying out, okay? Remember, we're starting from nothing, and I want to get to MVP early. You can read that right now. I propose an MVP, which is very, very skinny. It's painful. I quote somebody all the time, if you're not embarrassed by your MVP, you did too much. You should be embarrassed because you want someone's opinion about what you should do to improve a thing, okay? And you want to get there as fast as you can. See the stuff I talked about with Fabrizio. It was a fun talk. Okay, I don't want to, as I said on this, I'm going to park myself there on it. And if it's something you want to talk about, ask me in Q&A, which I will get to soonish. I'm going to keep the last 30 minutes for Q&A, I think. Okay, I want to get to the point of real learning. So what am I proposing? 4 stories. A blank fixed dimension yard, 20 by 20. You can't make multiple of them. You can just invoke a blank project and start designing it. You can, arguably so far, that's not enough. But at least I have a canvas. I acknowledge this is insufficient. Okay, I am not ready to even talk about something, and there are people who could say this isn't a valuable story because I can't do anything with it. You are not necessarily wrong. It's more than I had, but at least I can show progress. It's a completable unit of work. That's why it might be a prior to MVP story. Now, I'm going to allow you to put 1 plant in. I'm going to declare a type of plant, and you can start throwing monkey grass on that map anywhere you want. Make pretty pictures, designs. Okay, and now I'm going to let you save it and probably retrieve it. Okay. Well, actually, no, I did actually go there in the comments. I can save a project and I can clear it out and create a new one in its place. That could iterate to a library of projects, but at least now I have the ability to create a project of a sample dimension, throw a plant on it. Okay, at least 1 plant, 1 and only 1 is how I've asserted it. But if somebody tells me a few are doable, I won't argue with them. And now I can save it. Then the last thing is I'm going to give you a fixed number of plants that you can iterate through. That you could throw on there. So monkey grass, maybe Bermuda grass, maybe azaleas, and I don't know, pine trees, something like that. Maybe a ground cover. Small set of things, but I can show the concept here. That's why I said MVP. Now I could show somebody, hey, pretend your yard was 20 by 20 and these were plants you liked. Tell me what you think about designing a yard with this. What do you think's missing? What makes you say, oh, actually, I would love this if you just did these things, right? I'm getting feedback. From here, 4 stories in, probably my first sprint, I can be flexible with anything from stories 5 on, okay? I've proposed what I think it might be, but I'm working agility and I will change those if I can get the feedback in time to make a difference, okay? That's what this gets you. Let's review for a second. I had a context diagram. Oop, I got an echo there. I have a context diagram. I have examined it, harvesting my actors. I know my priority. I know what my product owner and my team needs from me to get going soon. I understand the business context and priorities for that as well. I got a list of capabilities that I can narrow down to something skinny, and I can list out where I could go with any of them if I need to. I know stakeholders who are involved, okay? And I can start to create some artifacts, probably just from that, given that I live in this world, okay? Again, I live in the place that this work is being done, okay? I got some things I can do. Now, let's do an approach statement for this, okay? I am going to skim through this. I don't want to read it to you. I'm going to be sensitive to time there, and nobody likes reading slides at them. I think I've done enough of that. So just to say, right, we got our context and environmental concerns. We got 3 weeks, which really means 2 weeks. Elicitation is going to be small. I only need a couple of people because we're really just doing a skinny MVP. Prioritization, I think we're doing just this tiny slice to get to a very fast MVP, which is our thing we want to do, and to conserve our running funds. I'm going to keep the documentation minimal and make sure it's heavy on conversation. I think just a few things, ERD, catalog of capabilities, and details for the ones as we build them. I don't know that we need more than that, but do we know who our friendly customers are going to be and when they're available, so that I can start to think about how we have enough to show them and how we prepare that session, probably between me and the PO. And then here's what I'm going to do next. Here are the last few things. I got to talk to our UX designer, and I want to get this all written up. That's it. That's the BA approach for this. Hey, if you were doing agility, right? Let's just pretend you have the same kind of thing, but you have the whole thing around. And this is where I will ask for a little interactivity again. I have been there. Raise your, give me a thumbs up or some other fun icon if you feel like it, if you have been here. Project manager or somebody says, well, you know, here we're starting. I know you just walked in. You got 2 weeks to get the requirements done. We start the building in 3. Have fun. I'm sure you could get the requirements, right? You just got to gather them. Right? Yep. People have been there. Thank you. Again, this is very helpful when I can't see people as much and so on. Right. This happens. This is a real thing. So here you go. What do we got? A little different. I'll draw a few things, right? This is my plan for the next 2 weeks, given that we have all the stakeholders that might be possible. If not, we're going to run longer. Why? If I miss certain stakeholders, I introduce risk. You need to agree to take that risk on or tell me what you want to do, because there's no alternative. I plan to organize it around requirements workshops. That way I get all my stakeholders in and I get all their needs and I get it up early. Allows me to craft the BRD, because I'm assuming I'm doing one, and Q&A. I will ask for formal approvals because this is waterfall and we do that kind of thing there. Okay, and at the end of each, so we're going to do a session of workshop. Afternoon is off. Next morning, we're going to review what I've come up with. I will ask for approvals at the end of that. If I can't get them, our timeline may change. I'm going to maintain these following documents with these people. I'm going to do one document running across all of the different stakeholder groups and capabilities. So as I go through the homeowner, the designer, and a business owner, like a landscape company or something, I'm going to go through each of those persona and do a workshop focused on them. And I'll just increment the documents I have. I'm not going to produce 3 different documents for each of 3 stakeholders being 9 documents. That doesn't seem to help. That looks like a lot that could get lost. Bob is going to book the relevant workshops. That's the PM, so that we know if everyone's accountable to being there. Because if he asks you to, you will answer him because you don't answer me. And that was written by Ziggy, who is definitely not me, because if anybody asks you, I was never here. We didn't have this conversation. I was never here. I didn't talk to you today about the realities as I see waterfall work. Okay. And I don't love asking PMs to schedule meetings for me, because people should listen to me when I talk. But that's another story. Sometimes you got to borrow authority where people perceive authority to exist. All right. If I had to produce an analysis plan, which I have had to for waterfall, I think the agile one is pretty understandable. We all know what I'm doing, and I'm going to talk to you about it every day at stand up or when we have our backlog session to talk about how our backlog's looking. In waterfall work, I might need to lay out my sequence because I need to show what's happening. So that's kind of it. Saying this is what I'm going to do, how I'm going to make it work. I'm going to have 3 of these running one after the other. And if the stars align and the creek don't rise, I will be able to get that done in the 2 weeks you've asked for. And I'll give you an estimate of it, how well it's going in another week. If project manager, you don't see me having booked any of those meetings, or you haven't been able to book them for me, you already know the timeline's changing. Don't ask me to get it done in 3 days. I can't. There's no way. I can't get that much work done in 3 days. But we could have a conversation about how to agile the heck out of this if you want now. I also didn't say that. All right, APIs, same thing. I know it's going to sound funny. People ask, Ryland, why would this work with APIs? Well, APIs exist in a context. We just know that we have humans who are going to do things. So just briefly here, and again, ask questions about this if this is a focus for you. You're building a solution. The solution is probably you're the middleware group. You are building APIs to broker data from potentially external systems. So not everybody in the company has to have their own account, or every app have their own account for the plant material database, but it all goes through your brokered API. And that way you are accountable and know how much utilization it's getting and what billing, and if there's costs, et cetera, it's all there. So you might build your APIs based on what the programmer needs. Your programmer is a valid actor in this case, a valid stakeholder, and you'll talk with them about what kind of API capabilities they need. If you do API work, you know, one of the key points of application programming interfaces, whether it's HTTP or code to code, is abstraction. You need to know the why and the what, and the how is totally behind the abstraction. Okay, that's the way you work with those concepts. I said there'd be other techniques. Look at Babok chapter 10. If you don't have a Babok, look at this. There's a lot of techniques. I'm going to tell you that sometimes when I'm thinking, this doesn't feel right, how should I approach this a little different? I will at least look down the index of chapter 10 and say, oh yeah, that would be the right technique to use. That would really help. That would probably show clarity and help build understanding in a place that I might not have been able to do it otherwise. So I do this, okay? Like I said, I go back to work, I do this tomorrow. And we are almost there on time. Yay. Let's cover what we covered. Let's sum up. We reviewed the essentials of context diagrams, right? Remember, you're an expert, you have an approach. Context diagrams are breadth before depth. If I lost you on that tonight, and since no one has interrupted me, I'm hoping I did not. If I lost you on that, you have a link to the videos for this that we will put in the chat again one more time at the end of the session. So you can look at that on YouTube and watch a whole 90 minutes on that topic. They are a breadth before depth thing. Remember, you don't want to get into the how too much. Why and what and understanding and joint collaboration are the key hallmarks of the context diagram. Don't do too much of the how. I like having my technical team member there, my technical partner. However, I want them briefed ahead that please take guidance from me if I think we're getting too deep into the how we're going to do it. It's not the purpose of the session yet. It's to get the information on all the things we have to do so we can then figure out if we know enough about how to do them. We've reviewed the context diagram as a valuable input into stakeholders, artifacts, use cases, all kinds of other techniques. And hopefully I showed you how you can do it in waterfall or agile and where you can reference things. All right, so that's to bring kind of consciousness to it. We've covered a lot in about 50 minutes. So we are going to pivot to questions. Again, those links and that document in our chat shortly. If you want to follow me again, please remember LinkedIn, Eventbrite, and I will be letting people know about plans for next year as they happen. This is the last live talk we're doing this year. We'll see how things line up for next year. I'm also open to topics. If you wind up wanting to throw something in the chat, like, hey, this was really interesting at this or any other time this past year, if you've been at more of these, would love to know about things you are interested in talking about. I'm starting to think about what I'm going to do next year with this group of folks. So with that, Liz, I'm going to try to reinvoke my chat window and be able to scan through it. And if you want to come back and let me know what you think, if anybody's throwing questions in, or if anybody has things to talk about.
Okay, we have here, hang on a second, I've just lost my...
That's okay, I'm looking through. And if anyone has a question, please feel free to raise your hand. I can call on you directly, or you're welcome to put it in the chat. We, definitely, this is the part where I think everybody tells me what they needed to know out of tonight. I told you what I think you should know. However, you tell me what you need to know at this point. And I appreciate the compliments. Those are very helpful also. And folks are saying this was useful for you. That's always a plus. Yeah, I almost forgot to mention, I'll be putting up some facts about this on the website or otherwise, but I do trainings in-house. If you like the way I've done some of this, things I did not get to do this year because the shoulder, which is still repairing, but I'm out of the sling. Thanks for those of you. I noticed a chat member or two in there. It's healing. It still just hurts a whole lot. I love to come in and do trainings and stuff with people. So if you're interested in doing that for your work group or otherwise, send me an email. With that, let's see what we got tonight for questions. Looking through.
Do not have questions in here yet. Maybe put something in or raise your hand.
Yeah, let's give it a minute. And I'm trying to think of, if I had heard tonight, what questions do I usually get about this? And if not, I will ask you, if I can throw a question out to the group, if anybody wants to take one from me. What reaction do you think you'll get if you use this? I'm assuming if you're here tonight, you probably haven't been using this technique or doing the things I propose as the follow-on. If not, do you think you're going to encounter resistance? Or do you think they're going to receive you as, wow, I wish you'd done this 3 months ago. Why not? Why didn't you? Maybe like they're blaming you for not having brought them an improvement earlier that they didn't know to ask for. What reaction do you think you'll get if you try this at work?
A quiet group tonight.
I know. I'm figuring maybe everybody's having dinner, and I'm part of dinner theater this evening, which isn't the worst thing.
I have to say, as we go
ahead. Yeah, there's our first one. Thank you for being the first kernel of popcorn there, Tim.
Sure. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, I can't hear you either. Could you move the mic a little closer, maybe?
Let me try my device settings.
I can turn it up on my end, but I'm guessing other people may have the same problem.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
How's this microphone setting?
That's working great. Go ahead, Tim.
I had the wrong microphone selected. I just want to say that this is sometimes these webinars are also helpful for letting me know that like what I'm doing is actually not just a weird thing that I do, but it's like something other people find useful, you know, and in my experience that when I employ some of these techniques you talked about, like, you know, documenting the approach to help people know what we're going to do, people really, really appreciate that. And they are so grateful because it helps them, gives them context, right? So the context diagram is not just useful for the BA or the product owner or the PM, but it's useful for all the stakeholders. It seems to help everybody get on the same page and aligned. And the things that we do after that, really, people really appreciate that.
Do you find your technical team also appreciates it? Like they get that you're running ahead of them, that you're looking at finding out from them what they'll need to know so they can do their job, that you're, you know, that you're not trying to be them, but you do want to know what they need to know.
Right, exactly. So I find that this is really helpful for developers or systems analysts or people that are going to take these artifacts and build something with it. It really helps them. It's sometimes, you know, business requirements in just a written form don't really give people a holistic understanding. So using some of these other techniques, I get a lot of aha moments. That's what you meant by that. I can see the bigger picture.
Yeah. When everybody's got to draw it and agree to it. Like I think I say in other cases, like how many of us really believe that our business owners or product manager, whoever, when you give them a stack of requirements that's 300 requirements over 25 or more pages, yes, they sign off. Of course they do. But I usually get a reaction from them. You realize I don't really know what's in this. I can't certify that this is 100% correct. I'm taking your word on this.
They don't really digest those things in that format.
That's right. What I often do, and I didn't mention it here tonight, I think, but like on the context diagram, I will annotate that sometimes and link my requirements stack, if I'm doing BRDs, to the places they connect in the context diagram, if it makes sense to do it. That's an extra layer of value I can add. And I get asked back because of it. You know, I mean, it's like I'm making things visible for the people who are actually trying to understand. So yeah, Tim, I'm glad to hear it's working for you.
And I also will say that tailoring it to my audience really helps too, right? I always think about who's going to be looking at this.
Yes, absolutely. It makes you understand the need better as well, right? Over under BACCM, you know the need because you know the stakeholders who have it, receiving the product, building the product. Let me take we've gotten some good bubbling of questions and thoughts. Feel free to get on the stack for raising your hand again. And I think Liz and I are both looking at the text for a minute to see if we have more here.
Right, Manisha was asking about the approach when the project is in hybrid, and even if that's an appropriate term for it.
Well, like I'm assuming this is referring to a hybrid between waterfall and agile. That's the framework you're dealing with. And Manisha, if that's not correct, feel free to amend that in the chat there. It doesn't change anything. This is the way to surface, as Tim was pointing out, and as I think others are saying a little. If I skim some of the comments, that it's like this is what we're talking about when we talk about building the thing. This is what we're talking about, and people can see themselves in the diagram, or they can see their stakeholders, the represented people, like if they're representing the technical team or a capability, they can see that. And you provide a lot of good stuff in this also, especially in a hybrid case, I think, because I feel like scope can get a little lost in a hybrid world because you're working with a big scope, maybe, or a full scope because it's waterfall, but then you're eating it in an agile way. And the challenge there is to make sure people understand you are burning your capacity as we work through the sprint cycles. If we have a defined or expected capacity of, using the samples I've given you, 10 sprints to get our work done because we expect it will take between 8 and 10, so we budgeted 10. Well, okay, if we're at sprint 5 and you don't see the key things you expected to see, at least on the roadmap here, something's really wrong. We should have seen it in the context diagram, so we could prioritize those things. So I still feel like it's really the way to go. It's just a really good breadth before depth technique that lets everybody be on the same page. So I would use it anywhere. I've used it I've used it in proposals when I've been involved a little bit in helping propose work for potential new customers or engagements. I've used it when I land on one, if all I've got is scope, a bunch of scope statements from an SOW, which is usually kind of thin. That's okay, it's normal. I've used it in other cases. If we're just talking about a new feature, I'll just grab a context space and say, okay, let's just, I know a lot of these things will exist already, but what are we talking about? Who's going to benefit from it? And then you sometimes reveal additional stakeholders, and or sometimes you can say, all right, if this is correct, and everybody at least can look at the diagram and agree that it is correct for what we know, then we're good. Let's just go on. These are our assumptions, that there's no one other involved in this. All right, I can at least try to get the team to estimate this. Bear in mind, it's got a lot of heavy assumption. Okay, let's find another question there.
So Joel had mentioned that he had encountered some resistance to this because of the time to market issues. I don't know if that's something we want to address, or if Joel wants to elaborate a little bit on that.
Joel, encounter resistance mostly because of time to market scenario. All have to be done for yesterday. So Joel, if you don't mind me asking, and if you're willing to come up and talk for a minute, that's great. If you want to type, that's great too. I'm taking that as you're back here in the perception you're getting, if I can find it real quick, is you are back here on this situation. Everybody is just dying to get started, and the product owner is saying, well, why aren't you just getting going? You don't need to do a lot of analysis. BAs just make us slow down. That's their perception. And sometimes I understand that. I do understand that perception. BAs are just making us slow down. I want people writing code already. And you're like, well, do we know what they're writing code about? And you're shouted out of the room. Am I getting, or something like that? Joel, am I anywhere near right about that? And communicate somehow with me if I am. If not, I'll make an assumption.
Joel is still on mute. If you are talking, Joel, unmute yourself.
Or if you just want a message, I see somebody pop the thing, and let me see if that was you. Tom made a note. Okay, I'm going to assume that's right, but Joel, if you want to come up, raise your hand, and let's just try that. This is not an unfair thing, and if that's the perception, I think there's two tacks I would take with this. I can't tell you which one I would do. Depends on the situation, and I'm very off the cuff here. One would be show somebody a context diagram that you've either the one I did. You can always use the sample we've circulated tonight, the PNG, I think, or whatever, or come up with one of your own from a previous project, maybe done retrospectively, and show. Remember these other projects we've done that where we missed big chunks of scope, like we completely forgot. I'm making this up. The call center had to be involved in this application, or that they would be involved because they were going to get trained, right? We're building a new app. Someone has to support that app, and we didn't realize we have to schedule that with the call center team. Just making things up. And it caused us to delay. We'd all we've all crashed and crunched to get the project done on time. And we had to go through 3 more weeks because the call center team had to come up to speed. Why don't we do this piece of work I'm asking for, which is 1 day or less? It's a day of work for me. It's 3 hours of work for the team as a whole, just to look at the context. And let's just see if we can discover any roadblocks or trip ups along the way ahead instead. That would be one thing. I guess I'm saying there either the two tacks are, hey, I've got this new innovation and I think here's the value. And I am willing to do this if you'll give me 2 hours in a workshop. That's all I'm asking for. The other one would be, see all the trouble we avoid and remember how much trouble we've incurred. I have a way around that. Don't you want that? Remember, the whole conversation about risk usually gets project managers' attention. They'll help you. Those are the ways I'd overcome that if you're getting it. Otherwise, I might ask, I guess the last thing I'll throw on that is just, I acknowledge, like I said, being a BA sometimes can mean you are perceived as slowing things down. If you're slowing them down for the right reasons, people will appreciate you. You might still need to get some information, some feedback about why do you perceive me to be slowing things down? To no value? Do you understand that what I'm doing is valuable? What do you think about it? And listen, okay? Why is this perception here? Because it doesn't align with how I see the world. At least you'll know more and you'll see if you can be more influential, okay? Liz, did you have a lock on our next question?
There is a question from Siddhant about context diagrams and if they are relevant, more relevant for building the solution from scratch, or are they more useful in enhancing an existing solution? And if they are, how would you use it in that context?
Let me digest that again. They're useful for either one. I'll tell you why. I mean, you might only care about certain things. Obviously the new solution, greenfield, from the ground up, they're pretty obvious there.
Mhm.
If you're enhancing an existing solution, it still makes sense because you're talking about what will the solution do and who will benefit and who are the actors in the system and why. Like, what's the why? What benefit do they get? If you can't see the benefit, that's there. And it lets the technical team come in and say things like, and I'm making this up, but we all have been there, right? Oh, okay. Remember that diagram in the middle reflects what you have power over. I can write requirements and this team can go out and execute against those requirements with presumably no blocks if it's in the middle. What is not in the middle? Or what if you need an external actor to help with a thing, right? Like a system thing, right? Another database you need to integrate with. Or what if it's a really simple workflow? I'll throw you one that I'm sure everybody could see. Oh, we're going to have a new workflow in this system, and we're going to introduce the concept of approvers for purchases, making this up, right? Right now, it allows people to request office supplies, but someone else is going to be an approver of those in the new solution. Okay, so think of all the potential impacts to that. How will I know who an approver is? What happens to approval? What happens if people don't give approvals and they're sitting there? Can people make a rush selection? There's a whole bunch of impacts that you might not deal with in an MVP, but you want to think about so you can say, yeah, we considered those and they're out of scope for release one. Or, without this, this, and this, it's not going to be valuable. So we're going to go ahead and do those things. It lets you have the right conversation about the thing and figure out what features you've already built. And if you can leverage those, so much the better, then maybe color code those differently or something. So we already have this. It also lets you discover if a developer looks at you later and says, we don't have that ability. Either you and whoever told you it are not talking about the same thing, or someone is mistaken and you need to figure it out because you have possibly a faulty assumption. Because if you have to build that thing, then you have more scope than you had before, right? And you need to know. So I still would do it in either case. It's just a good breadth before depth technique that way. I know I sound like a record there, but I kind of am. That is the purpose. It eliminates all of these pieces of information. I saw a thing I want to pivot to for just a sec, if it's all right, because I saw Tom's comment. I use context diagrams and stakeholder reactions have been mixed. Right. I realize I'm not reacting to explaining stakeholders for the purpose. Oh, okay. So I think you're saying that's why you should explain that purpose to the people in the room so they don't perceive this as wasted and they can collaborate with you more.
Yeah, and something you said after I posted was, reminding people of a time when there were other projects that didn't go as well because we missed requirements, and this is a way to kind of uncover those hidden requirements.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem there. See if I can bring a diagram in. So let's see if I want to bring the other version of this in 1 second. Diagram. Yeah. It's easier if I bring that one in. So again, the thing I want to point out here is, let's say, let's pretend I wanted to elaborate this a little bit. Maybe the inventory system is a real system and maybe it's inside my company, but it's missing a thing. Now I know I need to connect to these folks. Maybe I have another actor over here, inventory manager. I can extend this out. This shows me business processes, and that helps my stakeholders they're just interested in this part, but now they understand why I'm asking the questions into the depths of these other areas, and they can get the value of that because they can then understand, oh yeah, if the inventory manager doesn't understand how to use this or isn't willing to use this, this is all crap for this person, which means I might as well not bother building it.
Mm-hmm.
Let me find out if they can help with that.
Yes. Yeah.
Or you move it down the thing. Maybe they're not ready to do it now, but they can give you a once a week printout from the inventory, export of some useful kind from it, and you can use that. They're not willing to do it every day, but they'll give you a once a week, and it's better than if you didn't have anything. Maybe, okay. Maybe you tell your homeowners inventory is an idea of what we are carrying. It is not a guarantee, something
Mhm.
like that. Maybe it's better than they had, or you could leave it alone entirely. Okay. I
Okay.
just want to throw that out there.
Thank
Tom,
you.
did we cover what we needed to there?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries. Okay. What else we got?
Back up and see if we missed anything here.
Yeah,
A lot of people saying this is really useful for them. Oh, someone just
really
posted
glad.
something in. Siddhant, is that a new one for you? Here we go.
Let's see at the bottom.
So
Our
if you're
context.
working on an enterprise level project that cuts across multiple departments,
Oh, yeah.
business units, stakeholders, and the IT team, do you create one context diagram or multiple?
Oh, I like that question. Good
Yeah.
one. Let's talk about that. Let's put this back up for us. So let's talk about larger scale. Right, you got to cut across a lot of things. Honestly, I don't see this being a big adaptation for a large group. Okay. Now, you'll see in the context diagram video, if you watch that, I'm not trying to be a purist with this. I want to do a thing that makes it work. Okay. I'm not trying to be a purist on how the Bach or anything else says do a context diagram. I need it to do what I need it to do. Maybe I represent my team here with one circle and I put a color on it and indicate the name of the team. Maybe if the inventory team is also present and they are invested and this is a thing the whole company is going to shift to and do, and we're trying to lay out the big picture and who could do what when, and it's going to be an input into a lot of thinking, right? Still breadth before depth, but we're doing all of our thinking together. Not a bad thing. Maybe I change that to a circle and I label it inventory system and I give the name of the team and a contact person, and I do that over here. And I repeat that along for other systems. That assuming that fits how we're conceiving of this. I'm not doing it for every team. I'm doing it for every capability, focus. I'm not going to declare a UX team on here. Why? UX isn't a thing here this way. UX designers will have to be involved in different places, but the UX designer is not an actor in this solution. So I don't put them on here. Okay. They're a stakeholder, they're not an actor. There's a difference. So I might extend this concept out. I'd add some more circles and I would make sure that each team, if I were a lead BA coordinating activity perhaps, and we were doing a workshop, I'd try to make it pretty. Not always easy, depending on how much room we have on the diagram and room in the room, but I would leave it that way. And I know now, okay, if I have a connection running to another circle, I at least have a way to talk to that circle of people and say, did we frame this right? Or maybe in a later meeting, okay? Maybe not right then. Can you commit to this? Does it align with your product roadmap? Is it a capability you could build with your system? Is it framed the right way? We could have that dialogue. External system, like a software as a service, or an external actor like a third party, whatever, you may just get what they get. And if it's not on their roadmap for you, they're not going to do it. You know how, picture asking SAP to write something custom for your SAP implementation. They probably will for a price. Will it be quick? I wouldn't bet on it. Okay. They'll write you a custom module for your company. Are they going to add it to the core of their product? Only if it's on their roadmap. Difference between a rectangle kind of thing and a circle. Circle inside like another circle, I can have a conversation there and probably obtain commitment. You know, again, breadth before depth. It leads on to a conversation that lets you validate stuff. If I had 5 teams and it seemed appropriate, I might have several circles. So that's how I would approach that. I would use the same technique and I would just extend it further. Okay. And if I had actors who act with different systems, I would probably repeat the actor, connecting them to each system independently. A, it lets my diagram be simpler, and B, it lets me focus on what solution that actor is doing the thing in. If my solution is the portal to the inventory system, and the inventory system doesn't expose a user interface, then we're fine. They're staying over here with me. I'm brokering the inventory system's stuff. If the inventory system has its own UI, I will put it over there so I can see what scope, who is likely to own that scope, right? Because they're going to build their UIs, I'm going to build my UIs. Now I know who's likely to have what scope of the depth of the solution. Okay. All right, we are 8 minutes from time because I'd like to stop on time tonight. So any last couple of questions, comments, concerns? I'll hang on a moment here. Go ahead. I don't know if that was a. Okay. Great. Yes, this was the sequel. Revenge of Context Diagrams.
It's interesting. I was actually just thinking, jotting myself some notes down. I don't work as a BA, but I am so tired of having to try to explain to staff members in various departments why I must have them all do this certain thing. And
Yeah.
now I can set up a context diagram and say, listen, this, by you all performing this task, that you all don't understand why you need it. Here's the context. It goes to this user, this stakeholder, this process. I can kind of reverse it out.
Yeah, actually, Liz, let's mention that for a minute because I think it connects to Hassan's thing. I'm sure let's talk about that a minute. You do a variety of nursing administration stuff at this stage of your career, right? Let's pretend for a minute that we were introducing a new process that was maybe just a paper process. I'm saying maybe just a, but or how will we do a home visit quality assurance process? Okay, the solution will improve the home visit quality process for all of the folks. How will it do that? Well, it'll produce these compliance reports. Oh, okay, it will. That's a line. Produces compliance reports. Who will receive them? They may be paper. It may be an administrator that creates them. But okay, so the solution, as part of the solution, we have control of our office, and a human will take these documents that people circulate and summarize them and analyze them and produce this certified report that they sign their name on that goes to things. Okay, so that is still a solution, and it will produce a capability to someone, either on a cadence, let's pretend it's this line, and maybe that's a compliance organization, or it's a human who's your compliance administrator, right? This person will, on a cadence, receive a compliance and quality report, etc. Okay, who has to input that? Well, over here on the other end of the diagram is the visiting nurses. I'm making up everything Liz does. I have no idea in detail what she does, but I'm working with it. I'm riffing.
Yeah, you're okay.
Okay, so over here, there's a, not like we would have, unlike we would have, right? Okay, here's a visiting nurse, and she will, or he will, provide a log of their activities and their quality checks each week, signing it off, et cetera, and this happens. Now, we're all technologists. We would think about apps, but someone might try a paper process to see if it makes sense first, right? They might just do that as a very normal first cut at a thing. So that's why I'm saying this would work in Liz's world that has nothing to do necessarily with IT or business analysis, but it's a way to visualize who is doing what in this system and what's important and what capabilities do they enjoy and how much control do we have over those things. And then you can start to deal with what's maybe a first cut at those things in an agile way, or if you have to do it more rigorously, you can approach it that way. So Liz, I'm thrilled to hear that, and thank you. This is one reason I love doing this with folks. I learned that tonight. I wouldn't have thought of that kind of thing except for Liz's comment. So it's one reason something I get from all of you through these nights.
I have a lot of positive stuff from people here. People really enjoyed this
Always
one.
a pleasure. Yeah, no, thank you all for being here tonight, and I appreciate the compliments. It helps. All right, I will go with last questions, once, twice, three times kind of thing. And Liz, yours was great too. I hope I didn't step on any point you were making. Yeah. Because I got so excited. I was like, that would work. And it would answer this question on the screen. That's awesome. I love this. All right, so last opportunity for questions, comments, thoughts. Going once, twice. Any other thoughts, comments, things, questions? All right, folks, it's been a lot of fun tonight. Thank you for being here. And I will see you again, possibly this year, but probably next year. We'll see what it is. Please feel free to send email or throw a thing in the chat about like topics that, or issues you face at work and are interested in. And again, please, if you get a chance, I would love some feedback on that survey. I do want to send it out. It's a little pet project of mine I want to update for the coming year. If you can look at that WIP for comment, this thing that we sent the link out about. Okay. If you didn't see it here, it's in yeah, I think she's dropping it in the chat again, but if you didn't see it here, I did put it in one of the emails that I messaged out through Eventbrite, and I'll probably post it on LinkedIn. So please feel free to check there and follow me there. There's the survey again. So I'm kind of seeing if the survey holds water, makes sense, is doable, that kind of thing. All right. And with that, let's stop. Thank you all. Have a great holiday season if I don't see you again before then. Okay. Take care, everybody.